may actually think that the name is familiar. I previously hosted my podcast that was called Our Dead Dads. In the last few months, I have rebranded. We are fully relaunched, and we are now Grief is Not a Dirty Word. It is not a new podcast. It is an evolution of what I've been doing for the last almost 2 years. You can find me anywhere, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeart, Pandora, Amazon, I think I said Amazon Music, basically all of the major podcast platforms. And you can also find me on griefisnotadirtyword.com. And you can find my social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn.
Perfect. So first question for you, Nick. Why did you start the podcast?
I started the podcast. Well, that's kind of a multi-layered question. Multi-layered answer. I started the podcast because I was initially looking to keep myself busy. I was in the middle of a 3-month period where I was not working in the beginning of January 2024. I had a little bit of time for the first time ever that I had not been gainfully employed since I began working. And a friend of mine had actually been getting ready to start her own podcast, and through different conversations, she said, maybe you should start a podcast. And of course, I'm thinking, what do people want to listen to me talk about, possibly? Thought about it, gave it a lot of thought, and I knew that if I was going to do it, it needed to be something meaningful. I didn't want to start a podcast that was going to be combative or confrontational or just basically a cheap way to get a lot of listeners. I didn't want to do anything that was based on sports or politics or religion or any of the hot button issues. And I'm not trying to say that anybody who has a podcast in those formats is not worthy and it's not a good podcast. I'm sure that it is. It's just not something that I wanted to do. I needed something to be meaningful to me personally and something that I knew was meaningful to other people. I thought back to what I went through with my dad after he passed away, which was in May of 2021. When he died, I largely thought I was okay. Now, we did not have a great relationship. I'm the oldest of his 7 children. He was married and divorced 5 times. I have frequently called our relationship very complicated, and I think that's probably the best way that I could describe it. He was a complicated individual. You kind of have to be married and divorced 5 times. When he died, like I said, I thought I was fine. I didn't think my life was going to change all that much. I was ready to move on. I was relieved in a couple of different ways. I was relieved that his physical suffering that he was enduring for many years was over. And I was also relieved that all the crap that my siblings and I endured from him was over. So over the next few months, try to just move on with my life, get back to it. And probably 3 or 4 months later, I realized I was dealing with a lot of anger toward him, and I didn't know where it was coming from, and I didn't know how to deal with it. My wife is the one who pointed it out to me that I probably needed to talk to somebody, and she was right. It's honestly probably one of the best things anybody's ever said to me. Thankfully, the person that you live with and you're married with knows you better than anybody else, and sometimes knows you better than you know yourself. She saw it. She saw the anger that I was dealing with. She recommended I talk to somebody professionally. Not that she wouldn't have been willing, but this was not a topic that I needed to drag her into. I knew that I needed to be somebody completely unattached to the situation. So I found a therapist, started having weekly conversations. We were doing this virtually. My wife and I were living in Texas at the time. We now live in Tampa. This was late 2021. It was still high COVID season. So we were doing everything virtually, which was great. I found an amazing therapist. And I knew that if I was going to have these conversations, I was going to have to be completely honest with her. Because if I wasn't going to be honest, then I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting her time, and I'm wasting my money. So let's dig into it. And anything that she asked me, we dug in. We dug into a lot of different things. 6 months later, we reached what we would call the end of my therapy journey. And I really felt like a new person. I was able to find forgiveness toward my dad that I never thought was possible. I was able to see him in a light that I had never seen. I was able to see that if he had lived another 25 years, the way he was never would have changed. I was also able to appreciate the good things that I got from him, the good things that I have inside of me that I got from him. I was able to appreciate the good times that we had. And not that I never thought about some of the good times that we had, but at that point I couldn't see it. I was so angry at him because of the person that he was and the way that he treated me and the rest of his children and all of his ex-wives and his colleagues and pretty much anybody that he ever came into contact with. It was just a horrible way to live. It was a horrible existence to live. He saw himself as the victim of everything. He had no accountability for anything. Anytime anything ever went wrong, it was always somebody else's fault. That's just the way he was. I was able to have a different perspective and find the forgiveness. And I think that life in a lot of ways is about perspective. And 6 months prior, I didn't have it. Now I did. So I was able to find the forgiveness toward him. I was able to forgive him for being largely the person that he was. I was able to forgive him for not being the father that I and the rest of my siblings needed him to be. I was able to forgive myself for holding so much anger and hostility toward him after he died. And I was able to move forward. So when the time came in 2024 to begin a podcast, I gave a lot of thought to what I went through and what it took to get from a state of constant anger toward a man who was dead to the process of forgiveness. And it, I guess, dawned on me that not that I'm trying to say that I was a singular case, but it really made me also think about what everybody goes through when they lose someone. And I've had a lot of conversations over the years with folks, with friends, with family members, with coworkers, sometimes with perfect strangers who would just come up to me and say, "Hey, Nick, look, I know that you don't have any part in this, but I'm going through a lot of crap right now. I really just need to vent. I need to get some stuff off my chest. Can we just go somewhere for 5 or 10 minutes and can we just chat?" And I would always say, yes, let's do it. Whether it was just a few minutes in the conference room at work, or we go get some lunch or dinner or whatever it may be. Never had a problem being that sounding board for somebody whenever they needed it. And thinking about my journey, thinking about everything that all the people that I had spoken with in the past were going through with their journeys, just knowing a fraction of what they were going through, I realized that we don't talk nearly enough about the things that impact us the most. These are horrible situations in some cases. And now, look, I was not physically beaten. I was not, left on the street for dead or anything like that. Like he wasn't the greatest person, but he was far from the worst. That's why I say, I'm not trying to say that my situation was the worst ever. It was not even close. There are people that deal with far worse loss and far worse existences and relationships with parents or family members or just other people in their lives. But what I also didn't realize is what I was going through, the anger that I was feeling. It was grief. It was the grieving process. I didn't know that. I just thought I was pissed off at him. I didn't know anything about grief at this point. I didn't know about the grieving process. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I also realized most of us are in the same boat. Unless you've been through it, unless you've been through the thick of it, unless you've dealt with it head on and not tried to run as far away from it as you can, most of us, almost all of us, are in the same exact situation. Whether it's somebody who has died, whether it's a parent or a sibling or a child or a best friend or a teacher or a grandparent or a neighbor or a pet or the loss of a marriage or of a job or losing a house or life savings. There are so many losses that can be experienced, and they all need to be grieved. They all deserve to be grieved. And we don't in this society. Growing up, I was told frequently, get over it. It's the past. You're not going to change it. You just got to move on. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on your podcast, so if you have to, you can bleep me out, but that was a crock of shit. That was absolutely the worst possible way that I want to say like my parents' generation, your parents' generation, like the people that raised us, that's how they taught us to deal with these situations, because that's how their parents taught them how to deal with it. It's just how it was. I'm not saying it was right. I'm not saying it was wrong. I don't want to give our parents' generation and the folks who raised us too much crap and say that they did a horrible job. I think I want to believe they did the best they could with the tools they had. I just don't believe that they had enough tools. I don't believe they had anywhere close to enough tools. And I believe it's getting better, but we still have a long way to go. We do need to talk more, not less, about grief. We need to be in a situation where we're with when we need to have the conversations, we need to be with someone who can hold space for us, who can respect what we're going through and not feel like they have to take it on as well, but just be here, be present for us, me, you, anybody who's going through it. Just be present for the person who's dealing with whatever it is that they're dealing with, and honor that situation, because we don't do that enough. We almost don't do it at all, unless you've been through it, unless you have experienced it, unless you've been that person for someone else. A lot of people don't know what to do. So I decided to start a podcast, and I am still trying to build a platform that is completely all-inclusive. This is not just about people who have died. Yes, the original name of the podcast was Our Dead Dads, and there was a personal hook on that. And rather than take up a ton of time here, I would invite anyone who would like to know more about my story, go to griefisnotadirtyword.com. All of the original Our Dead Dads episodes are still there. You can listen to episode 1, and that is me telling my story, not because I want to be in the spotlight, but because I wanted to set the benchmark and set the tone for everybody else to be able to come in and tell their story. But I also believe, as a leader professionally in a community, the way that I've always been taught growing up and in the corporate environment is, if you want to be a leader, then lead by example. Don't play the game of do as I say, not as I do. And if I wasn't leading by telling my story, then who the hell am I to ask anybody else to tell theirs? That's why I told my story. And again, it's there for episode 1, and I would encourage anyone to go listen to that and any of the other episodes that are there as well. But that's why I started it. I wanted to start building a community and start building a platform where anybody could, number one, come and talk to me about anything that they are going through or have gone through, or maybe they're not sure how to go through it. And number two, if they're going through something and they feel alone, they don't know how to deal with something, but they may not yet be ready to talk, then I would invite them to listen to any and every episode that I've put out so far as Our Dead Dads podcast, now as Grief Is Not a Dirty Word. Listen to these conversations, because even though you might be listening to a story that may not directly be what you dealt with, or a family member that you lost, or a situation that you went through, what I want everyone to get out of this podcast is that everybody that comes here, you are not alone. You are never alone in this space. You are never alone in this community that we are building. This isn't, my name may be on the podcast as the host, but this isn't about me. This is about the greater being. This is about the greater good. And this is about helping as many people as I possibly can. And that is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't have professional training in being a grief counselor. I didn't go to school for this. I'm not a doctor or a psychiatrist, or I don't have a ton of fancy letters after my name. I don't have a wall full of certifications. I have the heart to want to help people. I have the desire, the burning desire that has always been inside of me to help as many people as I possibly can. And fortunately, at 48 years old, I believe I have found certainly one of my callings. There's another one that I'm kind of working on that is maybe growing into something else. But this podcast was the beginning of fueling my desire to help as many people as I can. And I may not have the Joe Rogan or the Dax Shepard audience yet, but I'm getting there. And I will work as hard as I have to get this message out there, to listen to anybody who wants to have a conversation, to invite anybody in who wants to be part of the community, to let everybody know that whatever you're going through, it matters. You matter. Your situation matters. Your grief, your feelings matter. And if anybody tries to tell you otherwise, then you're around the wrong people. It's that simple.
To piggyback off of that, because you raised some fantastic points, Nick, is that community is key. We need to support each other. And there's something that you shared where you want people to talk about it, because sometimes in your situation, as well as mine, and probably many others, is we experience so many different types of emotions. We think maybe some of them are wrong, especially if it's towards our parents, right? Like, oh my God, how can we feel that way about mom and dad?
Right.
Or maybe our children, how can we feel about that way about our kids? But when you're grieving, embrace all of the emotions, because all of them matter, and many of them matter at that specific point. Like if you're feeling anger on Monday, there's a reason. Embrace it,
Right.
understand it, and try to carry forward. Do you
100%.
believe then that maybe some people, in an effort to not feel shame or maybe guilt of these emotions, they'll hide their hurt, they'll hide what they're feeling?
Absolutely, they do. They do. People do it every single day. Whether it's because they think it's shame, whether they think it's embarrassment, whether they think their feelings are not valid or don't matter, whatever the reason are, people have their reason and people do it every single day. And part of this journey, part of this podcast, part of this movement is to get everybody to understand that it's not shame. It should never be shame. Should never be shameful. It should never be embarrassing. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you're 15 years old or 85 years old, or anywhere between or beyond, especially men, we have been taught men have to be strong. You have to be strong, you have to be brave, you have to put on a strong face, you have to be there for whoever needs you. Men need help too. Women need help, men need help, children need help, older adults, the elderly adults need help. We all need something at some point. There's no other way to put it. We all need something we need something, we need someone. If we all had the answers, I wouldn't have a podcast. Therapists wouldn't have a job. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, because it's scary to think that some people put what they're feeling just maybe to satisfy other people. So I can't be angry today because I've lost someone, because I need to go into work and work won't understand. They expect me to be top performer. My team needs me. The neighbor down the street who I don't really like because they only shovel their snow on their driveway, but they don't even touch mine when I do theirs every single day, right?
Right.
It's annoying to try to still pretend things are okay, or to put on this identity that was who you were before the grief
Yeah.
and now who you are after it.
Right.
Why do you think some people struggle with embracing the new identity after the grief?
Because it's scary. It's uncomfortable. It's something that we're not used to. When you lose a parent for the first time, when you lose a sibling or a child for the first time, or a spouse, or a grandparent, or a coworker that you were really close with, or a best friend that you've known for 40 years, you don't, especially if you weren't prepared for it, especially if you didn't have a ton of advance warning that it was coming, or any, you don't know how to deal with it. You're very uncomfortable. And I don't mean you, I mean anyone within the sound of our voices. You are so uncomfortable in that new reality, and you're not prepared for it because, to my point earlier, society didn't prepare you. Your parents didn't prepare you. None of us were prepared for what we're feeling. And it's scary, and we don't like to be pushed out of our comfort zones. We don't. Nobody does. I think that's the real reason. We hate the unknown. We all have a fear of the unknown, and it scares the shit out of us.
How do you think some people can handle it then?
Talk. Start talking. Have a conversation. So many people, as I mentioned earlier, I talked about all of the coworkers and the friends and the random people that would come up to me and have a conversation. I didn't know any of their backstories about what they were about to talk to me before we started talking. And every single one of those folks, and there have been dozens of them over the years, they took a chance. They made themselves vulnerable for me, in front of me, by asking if I would hold space with them for a few minutes so that I could listen to whatever it was that they had going on. They probably were terrified that I might say no. They might have been terrified because maybe they already asked somebody who said no. Or they might have thought, excuse me, they might have thought, he's not involved. He doesn't want anything to deal with my problems and my crap. So a lot of people, for that reason, again, the fear of the unknown, they're not going to say something. But every one of the folks who initiated that conversation with me, they took the most important step. They took the very first step and started talking about it. Before then, they were probably just racking their brains with, holy shit, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? I don't know how to handle this. I don't know who to talk to. Oh my God, I'm so stressed out. I just I want this to go away, and I don't know what to do, and I'm losing my mind. But they started the conversation. Again, with probably a lot of fear and a lot of apprehension. The common denominator of all of those conversations after they were done, every single person said, thank you, I feel a lot better. Thank you for listening to me. I'm not saying we solved the world's problems inside of 10 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour of lunch, but it gave all of them the tools that they needed to continue doing the work, whether to talk to the person who they really needed to talk to. If it was a situation, if they were just angry at someone, or they were mad about whatever it may have been, or they were hurting because of someone who was about to die, and they didn't know how to talk about it, how to address it. But by having that initial conversation with me, it started the greater conversation that they needed to have with whoever they needed to have it with. And in all situations that I knew about a next step that they did, they all came back to me at some point and said they've done A, B, or C. They had a conversation with this person, or in some cases, they started talking to a counselor or a therapist, which they were terrified to do, because they realized they don't have all of the answers. Conversation is every every part of the emotional spectrum. It can be so powerful, it can be so helpful, it can be so hurtful. And we are most of us are very good at saying the wrong things. A lot of people that we all know are masters at being keyboard warriors on social media and spouting off about whatever topic they may be talking about, whether it's sports, religion, or politics, or current events. And they're just going to sit there and type, not caring what the person they're responding to is going to feel or who they might be hurting, because it's giving them some cheap thrill to respond in whatever moment because they figure, oh, I've got the blanket of anonymity. I mean, no, you really don't, because unless if you're on a burner account, then people are going to know exactly who you are if they really want to bother to do the research and find you. But most cases, they're not. But instead of being a keyboard warrior, instead of spouting off about whatever useless detail that you're probably going to type just because it'll make you feel better, think about it the other way. Think about what a positive difference you can make in somebody's life. Think about how little you probably know about what's going on in that person's life. What are they upset about? What are they pissed off about? What are they posting about? Why? Does it cost any more to be an asshole than it does to be a good person? And again, that's on social media. Most of the things that people say on social media, they're not going to say in real life because they're terrified of the consequences.
Yeah, Mike Tyson had that great quote, right? Like everyone has a plan until they get hit in the face.
Yeah, exactly right. But most people also think that just because they're on Facebook or on X or on TikTok, they're not going to get hit in the face. And most of them don't. Occasionally somebody does. And I'm not advocating for physical violence either. That's not what we're saying. I'm saying use the power of conversation for good, regardless of what the outcome is. And it might not solve the situation. You're not put here in the middle of every situation to solve every situation. If you do, great. If you don't, that's okay too. Maybe the intention, if somebody's reaching out, they might not be looking for you. In fact, probably most of the time, they're not necessarily looking for you to solve their problem. They're just looking to be heard for a few minutes. So talk. If you have something going on, then try to talk to somebody. Just reach out to somebody like those dozens of people did to me over the years, and they asked me for a few minutes of my time. That didn't cost me a damn thing. It cost me a few minutes of my time. So I went to lunch with somebody instead of going to lunch by myself. Probably had a better lunch because I went to lunch with somebody else. It doesn't cost me anything, but it pays dividends in ways that you won't be able to imagine before going through it. But you're going to be so thankful that you did after you do it. And for the person who is, if somebody out, I'm talking to everybody listening, if somebody comes up to you, talks to you and says, can I have a few minutes of your time? I know you don't know what's going on, but I just need to talk to you. I just need to get some stuff off my chest. Don't blow them off. Don't ignore them. This isn't about you. Don't make it about you. Make it about them. Give up 5 minutes of your time. Give up 10 minutes of your time. Who cares what the topic's about? You think you're going to be uncomfortable listening? Think of how uncomfortable the person who's about to talk to you really is. And if somebody's coming up to you and says, I need to talk for a few minutes, I just need to get some stuff off my chest, it's not about you. Yes, you're there at that moment, and you're going to potentially be a great resource and a great advocate for that person. But it's not about you. And don't make it about you. Make it about them. When you need it to be about you, when you need to talk to somebody, then go to somebody. Go to a friend. Go to a family member. Go to a complete stranger. Go to a podcaster. Go to me, or go to Terrain. Go to anybody. There are so many people out there. Just don't be afraid. Don't let the fear of the unknown, don't let the fear of what is currently uncomfortable to you be the force that stops you from taking the first step that you probably desperately need to take.
Communication is so important because you want to be able to talk it out. When I first experienced my grief during COVID, when I lost my friend that I used to work with,
Hmm.
I just wanted to talk to someone about it. And Nick, I went to everyone who was close to me, some close to me emotionally, some close to me in proximity.
Yeah.
I realized that I went to a lot of the wrong people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And they complicated my grief and they made it a lot worse. But what I did like is I was able to get it out, good, bad, or indifferent. What I received in return kind of muddied my emotions. But then the
Hmm.
second time when I experienced grief, I was wiser. I went to the people who demonstrated the behaviors that I knew I needed to get through it the second time. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't have learned that if I didn't communicate it. And to your
Right.
point, right? The listening was really, really key because I felt heard, I felt appreciated. How important was it for you to feel heard, to feel appreciated?
Um, which situation are we talking about here?
When people were checking with you and you're able to express yourself and share what you're going through.
Um, when they're about their own situations.
Yes, yeah.
Honestly, it wasn't important at all to me to be appreciated. It was important that they felt better, that they were getting the tools that they needed because it wasn't about me. I didn't care if I was being appreciated. I knew that I was because they told me how much they appreciated it. That's not what's important to me. What's important to me is if you have something going on in your life, meaning you, Terrain, or anybody listening, and you come to me and say, Nick, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I need to talk to you for a few minutes. I've got some things going on that don't involve you, but I need a sounding board. I need a voice of reason. Can you please be that for me? The most important thing for me is that I addressed their concern, that I gave them what they needed, that I was, whether they come back to me later and give me an update or they don't, I want to know that I gave them what they needed in that moment. I don't need a thank you card. I don't need, a big follow up speech to say how amazing I am, or for them to tell 100 people, "Oh, Nick's so great. He did this for me and he did that." I I've kind of always preferred to live in the shadows, and which of course is weird that I have a podcast, but yet I'm not doing it for the recognition. I'm doing it because we all need somebody. And if I or any of my guests in the past that I have, or any of the guests in my future, could be that help for somebody going forward, then I want it to be. And as far as for the other people that I've been there and the future people that will inevitably come up to me and say, "Can I talk to you for a few minutes?" I don't need I don't need them to tell me that they appreciate me. I need them to be okay. I need them to be able to be heard when they need to be heard, not 4 days later after asking 16 different people because the first 15 people wouldn't listen to them.
Or the first 15 either got busy with life. I didn't know any idea how to be of service to them.
Right. And as far as you're absolutely right. And as far as how you can be of service, ladies and gentlemen who are listening, it's not hard to be of service. You have to be willing to listen. You have to be good at listening. And that means let the person say what they need to say. If they ask you for advice, offer it. If they don't ask you for advice, just keep listening. They're not talking to you because they want you to solve their problems. They're not talking to you because they want you to take on what they're going through. They're talking to you because they are lost and because they don't know what to do. And sometimes just saying the words, however difficult or jumbled they may be to get them out, sometimes just saying the words does more good than most of us can comprehend. So just be there, be the sounding board. Just listen to them. Sometimes there might be very little conversation. Sometimes somebody just needs to just sit with someone in silence. Silence is okay. And again, for anybody listening to this conversation, if you're approached by somebody, you might be uncomfortable with it. Be uncomfortable, because it's not about you. It's about the person who's coming to talk to you. It's about the person who's making themselves vulnerable enough to reach out to someone. That somebody is going to be you. Give them the respect and the time that they deserve. Because if you needed it, you would want it to be that way also. So give them what they deserve.
The first time someone shared with me that they lost someone, I felt, and this goes back to when you mentioned appreciated, I felt grateful and I was very humble and I felt honored that they would trust me enough to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, this person is confiding in me. And sometimes I look back, Nick, and I'm like, who am I
Right.
to be that, right? But I may not think I'm someone, or I may maybe underappreciate myself, but that person chose me to
Yes.
express such strong emotions. And that's where I was going with the appreciation, because it's like, to your point, there could have been who knows how many people before me, 15, 20, or maybe there was no one. Maybe they knew exactly who to go to.
Yeah.
When you were going through your grief journey, how did you identify who was going to be a support system for you?
It wasn't easy. Because again, when I was dealing with the anger that I wasn't sure where foundationally it was coming from, I didn't even realize I was in the beginning of my grief journey. I do have a group of guys that I'm very close with. I have three younger brothers and three of my best friends. The seven of us have been close for a very long time. They have frequently been a sounding board for me. We've all been a sounding board for each other. And again, if anybody listens to the first, I'll say the first three episodes of Our Dead Dads, you'll get an introduction to my three brothers and those three friends, and you'll understand the ridiculous relationship that we all have, and at the same time, how close we really are. We all had the conversations. Anytime I needed to talk to someone, I did. Before that, I really didn't reach out to anybody because, again, I didn't know what I didn't know about grief. I didn't know anything. I didn't know that I could reach out. Even though countless people had reached out to me, I didn't realize that was an option for me. And that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm talking to you. That's why I'm talking on my podcast. I'll talk to anybody until I'm blue in the face to let everybody know. Please don't make the mistake that I did. Don't think that you don't have anyone to talk to. Don't think that you are alone. Don't think that your story doesn't matter. Don't think that your story is insignificant and nobody wants to hear it, because none of it is true. Anybody that I had reached out to, I think there's at least a good chance that if I had reached out to somebody the way that many people did to me, there probably would have been almost all of them, maybe all of them, would have gladly taken the time if I just said, I just need to get some shit off my chest for 15 minutes or for 5 minutes. Again, it's hard to put yourself in the same situation that others put them in. Again, with people coming up to me, of course I'm going to be there, but I didn't stop and think, hey, dummy, it goes both ways. You can talk to people too. I wasn't thinking clearly. I wasn't thinking at all because I didn't know what I didn't know. You know, you also mentioned about the trust that is involved with somebody telling a story. That's something that I mention frequently on my interviews, and I mention it to all of my guests, how honored and grateful I am to be trusted with the information that they're giving me. The You and I have had conversations. We're going to be doing an interview on my show where you're going to be the guest. The information that you're going to be giving me, the information that all of my guests have given me about their journey and what we're going to talk about. Yeah, plenty of times I have thought, who the hell am I and why am I being blessed with this information, with this power? It's something that people don't realize when somebody who is in grief, any kind of grief. Again, it doesn't have to be grief over the loss, over the death of somebody. There are many, many, many different kinds of grief that you can be going through. You can be going through anticipatory grief. You can be going through grief, again, as of losing a job or not having a job or not being able to find a job or losing your home or losing a friendship or an identity. When somebody comes up to you and talks to you about this, that is a lot of power that you're being given. That is a lot of trust you're being given. That is a lot of vulnerability on the other person's part. And you, as the person receiving all that information, need to honor that. You need to honor the shit out of it. You need to realize how powerful that person's trust in you must be to hand over this information, because they're making themselves possibly and probably the most vulnerable that they ever have. And they're doing it to you. Don't waste that opportunity. That opportunity is absolute gold. You can do so much with that. You don't have to be a therapist or a licensed counselor or a grief coach or any of that to be able to help somebody. You just need to be able to listen. If somebody needs you to talk to them, you'll know it. But you need to be able to listen. You need to just be there for the person and understand the task that's in front of you. Understand that you're being given a lot of power. You're being given a lot of trust. The person who's telling you this is trusting you with, again, some of the most vulnerable and important information possibly that they've ever gone through. Don't waste that opportunity. And know that what they're doing with you, if you need it ever, don't waste the opportunity of talking to somebody else. Don't say nothing. Don't stay silent with anything you're feeling because you think what you're dealing with is not important, or because you think it's not important enough to lay on somebody else's lap. It is. All day long, all night long, twice on Sunday, all the things. It is absolutely important enough to bring up, and they will listen to you. And if they don't, Tareen, like you said in the beginning of your grief when you lost your friend, you unfortunately came across some people who were not the right person for you. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't mean they're a horrible person. It doesn't mean that they're not your friend or they're not your family. It just means that they weren't right for you at that time. But that's also, look, that sucks. Sorry, I have something in my eye. It sucks when you have to be confronted with that, to know that you're trying to make yourself vulnerable and you're trying to reach out to somebody and they just turned you down for whatever their reason was. Honestly, it doesn't even matter what their reason was. Maybe they're going through some stuff too, and maybe they just can't be that person for you right there. Or maybe they don't know how to be that person. Maybe they have nothing going on, but they're really scared of being so uncomfortable about what the next thing you might say is. Yeah, it sucks. And you, as the person who needs to get some information out, really at that point, the only thing that you can do is try not to lose your mind and understand that that person wasn't the right person for you to talk to. But there are other people, because we all know more than one person. So look, think of it this way. When we're all dating, do we marry the first person that we date? No. When we go car shopping, do we buy the first car that we looked at? Most of the time, no. Do we get the first job that we interview for? Most of the time, no. Sometimes it's going to take a minute. Hopefully when you're dealing with grief, hopefully it'll go a little bit quicker and you'll be able to find a person you need to talk to. but you might get some no's. You might get rejected. Are you going to give up? Are you going to allow yourself to become homeless if you don't get the first job that you interview for? No. You're going to put in more applications. You're going to send out more resumes. You're going to call more recruiters. And you're going to keep fighting for yourself because you're worth fighting for. When you're dealing with grief, you're also worth it. You are absolutely worth it. Even if the first person or the second person or the fifth person or the 10th person that you asked didn't see the value in having that conversation. It doesn't mean that you're not important to them. It doesn't mean that you're not worth it to them. It means they were not the right person at the right time to have that kind of a conversation with you. But there's somebody else. So ask somebody else. Don't give up. Ever, ever, ever. You are too important to give up on yourself and to give up on the work that you need to do. Self-care is so critical. And talking to somebody about what you're feeling, that is part of self-care. Self-care doesn't mean just brushing your teeth in the morning or taking a shower or, putting on deodorant. That's part of it. They're all parts of self-care. Conversation, and specifically conversations around times of grief or times of distress, are self-care too. And too many of us don't recognize that. And too many of us don't follow through with that. And that's,
I was going to say,
hoping to change.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you mentioned that, Nick, reminds me of that Spider-Man quote, right? With great power comes great responsibility.
100%.
And when someone comes to you with something that they've lost, identity, job, something that they're anticipating to get, they didn't get it, or the more known grief where someone actually loses a person, we can feel very powerless. And sometimes we want to go to someone to be recharged, not necessarily to get back our power, because that's always going to come within, but just to give us a boost, like a car that has a battery that needs to be boosted, right? Like, you still have the energy in there, you just need a spark. And I think that is very key to your point, because we want to make sure that not only are we there for others, we are there for ourselves as well. And you raise a good point with self-care. Self-care is more than just a spa. The manicure, the pedicure, the facials, the grooming, things like that, right? What were some of the ways that you found to take care of yourself, maybe while you're going through the journey and afterwards as well?
Well, I started a podcast. That was huge for me. That was a really big thing. Just honestly reaching out, having the I guess the belief in myself enough to reach out to a therapist in the fall of 2021 for whether 3, 4, 5 months, whatever it was after my dad had died, when I knew that I needed to. That was a huge step because I was terrified. I was terrified to start the conversation because I had an idea of where it was going to go, and I wasn't sure I wanted to go down that path. I wasn't sure I wanted to make myself vulnerable, and I'm so glad that I did because it changed my life. Starting the podcast has been what one of my guests had called it during one of the interviews, and which I agreed with and will say every day, has been a continuation, has been an extension of my therapy journey. It has having the conversations with everyone else, being that sounding board, being that space for all of the guests that I've had on this show and will have in the show, that has helped me in ways that I can't ever quantify. Not because they did anything for me, but because just the conversations of me being able to be that person for someone who needed it, it made a huge difference personally for me. It has given me the confidence to be able to speak up about my own situations when I need to. It has given me the confidence to be a better support system for someone who needs it. Because, 5 years ago, I've had all the conversations, like the brief conversations, when people randomly come up to me. I don't know that I would have had anywhere close to the ability to have the kind of conversations that I have today 5 years ago, because I didn't understand grief. I didn't understand other people's grief. I didn't understand my own. I wasn't ready to be that person 5 years ago. I did the best I could at the time, and I hope that it was enough of a start, at least for the people who came to me and said, I need to talk for a few minutes. I mean, apparently it did, because they came back and said, they thanked me and they said it helped. It continues. This podcast continues to make a difference every single day of my life. Being on your podcast, on other podcasts, getting to continue to tell my story and where I've come from. I'm not trying to just, tell my story 1,000 times, but I will tell my story 1,000 times, and I will answer all of the questions that you and every other podcast host has for me, because I believe that I am helping people somewhere, some way, somehow. I hope I am. I really do. And if I'm not, then I'm sorry if you felt that, this hour was a waste of your time. I hope that you don't walk away from this conversation thinking that, because no conversation I have ever had with anyone about their grief journey has ever been a waste of time. Even there have been a few conversations that ultimately didn't lead to a podcast interview, usually because the person said, I love what you're doing, but I'm not sure that I'm ready to tell this in a public forum. And that's okay. Some people just aren't ready. But we still have the conversations, and it still meant a lot to me that I could be there for that person. And for all the conversations that have been published, it brings so much peace to my life. I don't even want to say joy, because this isn't a joyous situation. It makes me happier than I can put into words that I can be this person for someone. It doesn't make me happy to see somebody suffering, to see somebody broken and lost in their grief and in their life because they don't know how to get through what they're getting through. It gives me tremendous pride that the person who I'm talking to selected me. That's the best way I can put it. So that's what I've done to help. That's what I've gotten out of it. So again, I hope that answers your question.
No, you're doing a fantastic job, because the passion is there and the vision. And we talked about earlier community and how important it is for us to come together and build something that is not only a safe and secure space for those who want to have the conversations, who need the guidance, who just need a good listening ear. How do you think we can build that community, and what are the steps that we need to take?
How can we build that community? Excuse me. You can start by, again, as we've said many times, just have a conversation. Even if you're not dealing with or haven't recently dealt with tremendous loss and tremendous grief, you will one day. I promise you, unless you die first, you will one day. Everybody listening already has the ability to help other people. So be that sounding board for somebody. Join grief groups. Don't just pass by them on social media. Think about what they're doing. Look into them a little bit. See what they're doing. See how they can help. See if this aligns with your own beliefs. And if you are going through something, then even more reason that you should talk to people, and you should say, look, I'm kind of going through some stuff. Like, any idea who I can talk to? Look around for groups on social media. Ask people if they know where you can go to talk to somebody, if they know, a group or a person. For all of you who are listening to this interview, share this interview with everybody. Share it on your social media. Share. Yes, you're sharing the interview with me, but you're also sharing Terrain's podcast, and you're sharing the work that he's doing aside from just this one interview. Share this with anyone in your life who you know is going through it, whether they're going through it now or they have gone through it, or you think they might need someone to talk to. If you think that they're going through something and they're not sure, you can recommend this podcast. You can also talk to them yourself, and you can say, if somebody's been off and they're just not themselves, whether at work or in your circle of friends or whatever, you're noticing something, don't let that go. Be like, hey, listen, I've noticed you've been not quite yourself lately. Everything okay? Anything you want to talk about? Anything? You'd be surprised what a difference that would make. Most people will probably say, no, I'm good, I'm fine. Keep an eye on them anyway. And if you notice things aren't improving, then gently reapproach the subject. Say, look, I know you said you're okay. You really don't seem like yourself. Something you want to talk about? What's going on? Let them know that you're a safe space for them. That builds community. And community starts one person at a time. You can have a community of 2 people. You can grow it into a community of 1,000 people and maybe even more. It's not hard to build community. Community is all about people who have like-minded ideas, who have like-minded beliefs or reasons for being there. So anybody can build community. And I would say anybody who's listening should, spread the word about your podcast, spread the word about my podcast. Send this interview when it's released to somebody who you think that this interview would resonate with, whether you know what they're going through or not. And more so if you do know what they're going through. But if you think they might be a little bit lost, if you think they might be going through something and you're not sure, just send them a link. Be like, look, I know you're going through some stuff. I don't really know the full scope of it. I would love to be there and talk to you, listen to you if you want to talk. But I think this interview might be something that you might get some benefit from listening to. And just send them the link to the episode. That's all. Anybody can build community.
I think it just takes the courage, right? And the knowledge, the will in a lot of ways. Do I want to do that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And again, I think that the will, the courage, and the ability to get out of your own way, the ability to overcome fear. Everything we've ever wanted is on the other side of fear, no matter what it is. Don't let fear stop you from doing anything for yourself, for someone else. Don't be afraid. Life is too fucking short to be afraid and to let fear run our lives, no matter what it is.
Yeah, I remember someone coming to me and they're afraid that they would be judged if they took time to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a big one because some people would rush back to work. Some people will pretend, hey, I'm here, guys' night out, girls' night out.
Yeah.
They won't take a moment because maybe they're trying to please everyone else's view of them. And maybe you've heard this in the people you've worked with or you personally, where someone will feel like they've been grieving too long and they gotta stop grieving, right? Like it's reached 90 days. Come on now, it's time to get over it. What are your thoughts on people who think that they're taking too long in their grieving process?
My thought is this. The finish line to your grief is your death. The day that you die, that's when your grief stops. Before that, there's no finish line. There's no timeline. There's no expectation. And if somebody else has an expectation, then you're around the wrong people. That's the only way I can put it. I'm not trying to say that you are around bad people. I'm saying if somebody is telling you that you need to modify your timeline for your grief, for their comfort, you're around the wrong people. Your grief doesn't finish. Your grief stays with you. Your grief may change, it may not. There are ways to work through it. I don't want to say to deal with it because it's not dealing with it. You don't move past it. You move if you're going to move anywhere, you're going to move through it. Sometimes it's going to take a long time. I know people who have good days and have bad days, and years after what they endured are frequently finding themselves still buried in their grief, whether it's because they just had a bad day or because they read something or they thought something. And it's not that every day is a bad day, but I know some people that have the occasional bad day, and I know some people that have more bad days than good days years afterwards. There's no timeline. I wish there was. I wish there was a simple of flip the switch and we move on, but it's not the case. Again, if it were, I wouldn't have a grief podcast because people would figure it out. You wouldn't have a podcast talk to anybody about their issues because they'd figure it out. So stop being so consumed with the idea that we need to figure it out, that we need to deal with it, that we need to move on. I mean, holy crap, we can have a conversation for hours about the absolute absurdity of the corporate approach, of the corporate approach to grief and grieving and 3-day bereavement or 5-day bereavement. Whatever. Holy crap. It's an absolute crock. You just buried your mother. You just buried your father. You're going to take 3 days off from work. You're supposed to go back and you're supposed to be back to who you were the day before your mother or your father or whoever died. No. And if you are, then it's because you're putting on a total facade, because you are just going there with the idea of, I got to deal with my work. I got to be there for my coworkers. No, you need to deal with what you need to deal with. You need to grieve your mother. You need to grieve your father. You need to grieve your friend or your cat or your cousin or your great grandmother that you met twice, who lived an amazing life of 104, but you're still sad. You need to deal with that. Because if you try to run from it, if you try to just bury it, guess what? It doesn't go away. Grief has no timeline. Grief has no memory loss. Grief remembers. Grief remembers when you tried to run. I have had many conversations with people that have tried to outwork, physically outrun, outdrink their grief. None of it worked. Not a single one. I haven't had a single conversation yet where somebody tried any of those conventional methods to get away from their grief. It might have worked for a little while, but then it came back, and it usually came back way worse than it was before. And it would come back to the point where they were absolutely buried in what they were dealing with in their mental space, and they couldn't function anymore. They couldn't deal with it. They couldn't go to work. They couldn't think straight. They couldn't talk to their spouse. They had no choice but to deal with it head on. That's what I would say to anybody who tries to avoid it. Don't avoid it. It's going to suck when you deal with it. It's going to suck more if you try to run from it.
Nick, let me ask you one final question before I let you go.
I do
And
not have
this
the winning lottery ticket.
I was actually going to give you 3 wishes, so you could wish for the winning lottery numbers. What are 3 things you wish people knew about not burying their grief, and why?
About not burying their grief. Well, I wish people knew that you don't have to. I wish people knew that you can't bury it. And I wish people knew that there is always somebody to talk to. No matter what you're going through, no matter how much you're hurting, no matter how significant or insignificant you think what you're dealing with is or may be, I wish everybody would understand that you truly do have somebody. It might not be the first person you ask. Like I said before, it might not even be the 10th person you ask. But there is somebody out there that you can and should talk to. If you have people in your inner circle, if you need to start with your inner circle, start there. If you're not having any luck with your inner circle, go way outside the box. If you think you can't talk to a therapist, then I would ask you, why do you think you can't talk to a therapist? And I would ask you to take this approach. When you go to the bar on Sunday for a football game, I'm going to take me and my pathetic New York Giants right now because they are god awful right now. But I still love them anyway. If my wife and I are going to the bar on a Sunday and we want to hang out with football fans, do you think we're going to be hanging out with the team whoever the Giants are playing, who the opposing jersey they're wearing? No, we're going to hang out with people who want to talk because that's where we're going to be comfortable with. But they might be just as miserable as we are. So hanging out with them might not help us at all. They might be saying, oh, the Giants suck, what a waste of a season, blah, blah, blah. And that's not going to help us at all. It might be the same way when you're dealing with grief. You might have someone that you're going to think that you can count on, that you think is going to be there. And you quickly realize they can't.